Welcome, everyone, to Talking Textiles. I'm Jonathan Sweet, Director of Content and Member Programs at ATA. The goal of this podcast is to get to know the wide variety of positions and markets that make the advanced textiles world turn. We'll be talking to professionals in different roles throughout this series to help inspire the next generation of textile professionals and anyone interested in learning about others' journey in the world of textiles. ATA offers advanced textiles content throughout the year, including the upcoming Advanced Textiles Expo 2025, taking place November 5th through 7th in Indianapolis, Indiana. See the latest innovations from top companies in the textiles industry and participate in education sessions taught by experts. Visit textiles.org/events to learn more. And today we're going to be talking about Advanced Textiles Expo. Our featured guests are Elizabeth Denley, a VP and PFAS Initiative Leader and Chemistry Director for Technical Strategy and Innovation at TRC Companies, and Terry Kelm, the President of Sunbelt Franchise Re-sales. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have the two of you here today to talk about your sessions at the upcoming Advanced Textiles Expo. All of our education during show hours this year is right on the show floor, so it's included with your admission to Expo. Terry will be presenting the challenges of selling a textile business at 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday, November 5th. And Elizabeth will be presenting, along with Amy Berg, on PFAS in the textile industry, 2025 challenges, solutions, and regulatory updates. And that session will be at 11:30 a.m. Thursday, November 6th. Let's start with you, Elizabeth, and tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, your company, and a little bit about what you'll be talking about at Expo.
Sure. So I work for TRC Companies. It's a company of about 9,000 employees. We serve various markets and sectors, including environmental, infrastructure, power, and digital. I am part of the environmental sector, and I serve as TRC's PFAS Initiative Leader and Chemistry Director. So I am a chemist by trade and education. So at TRC, I lead what is called our Center of Research and Expertise, or CORE PFAS team. It's a group of scientists devoted to staying informed of current PFAS issues, science, and regulations. I personally currently work on many different types of PFAS projects in relation to PFAS chemistry, sampling procedures, data interpretation, forensics, quality assurance, and analytical methodologies. But I also spend a good deal of time helping clients understand their PFAS risks and liabilities, possibly for the purposes of maybe regulatory compliance, possibly for the purposes of a transaction, or possibly for just an overall understanding of upcoming potential PFAS liabilities that the business really needs to be prepared for or be ready for, and helping businesses plan to manage those liabilities. So at the Expo, as you mentioned, I'll be presenting with attorney Amy Berg from the law firm Ice Miller, and we're going to talk about some of the challenges with the upcoming regulations and the uncertainty in the PFAS world about how textile companies can prepare for regulations and how they can assess some of their liability issues.
Terry, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you'll be talking about at Expo.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. As you said, my name is Terry Kelm, and I am the president of Sunbelt Re-sales. We are a division of the Sunbelt Business Broker Network, and Sunbelt Business Brokers is the #1 seller of small, independently owned businesses in the country. We transition more businesses annually than any other business broker in North America. We're a network of 165 local offices that do the buying and selling of businesses. And we're here to help any business owner, whether they be retail, distributor, manufacturer, anybody in the ATA circle. We're here to help them when they get to the point where they want to divest their business, and we're here to help them meet their transition goals. So we're going to talk about at Expo. Our seminar is going to be geared toward the challenges of selling a textile business. The industry is unique, as you guys know, and there are unique challenges that come with selling a business in that industry. So we're going to address some of those things and how they can be overcome in the sales cycle.
Great. Who would you say should attend your session?
Any business owner, anybody, whether they be a vendor or as I mentioned, a retailer, a manufacturer, or distributor, anybody who's a business owner. And it doesn't matter, Jonathan, where they're at as far as their business life cycle goes. Whether you're a year away from selling or you're 25 years away from selling, our session is going to bring out some very important things that you should be thinking about when you get to the point when you're going to sell your business. And one of the key cornerstones of a successful business transaction is preparation, starting well in advance. And we're gonna talk about what those steps look like later on. But it doesn't, like I said, anybody who's a business owner, even if you're not thinking about transitioning at this point in time, I think would get some value out of the session that we're going to host at the expo.
Great. Certainly a topic and something that you said every business, as you said, every business needs to prepare for, no matter where they are in their ownership journey. Liz, how about you? Who should be attending your session? Who's this going to be really helpful for?
Well, similarly, I think textile industry owners, environmental health and safety managers, procurement, product stewardship folks, attorneys, any stakeholders really involved in the strategic planning of a company's business should definitely attend. Like we just heard, it's just the importance of being prepared for the PFAS regulations, for the PFAS consumer product bans, the importance of understanding liabilities is important for all those stakeholders. And so those are the people I feel should attend our session.
Great. So another question for you. What do you get out of coming to Expo? Why do you enjoy coming to speak at the show? You've come and spoken at Expo in the past. What brings you back to see our group?
So last year was actually my first year attending. And my thought was that, this industry, the textile industry, really needs to understand what's ahead in the PFAS world. And at that time, EPA had proposed, this PFAS information collection request to the textile industry. And I saw, a potential significant impact coming down the road for this industry. And I didn't really see much else on the agenda for PFAS and thought it would kind of be a unique opportunity to provide that education and also just get a chance to talk to and meet some of these businesses. And I had never been before. I really thoroughly enjoyed it last year. I just really enjoyed just kind of walking around and meeting the different people and businesses and hearing their perspectives on PFAS and how it's affecting their business and what they're currently doing.
And how about you, Terry? Obviously, I know there's a business motivation, of course, but I mean, I'm sure there's more, you get more out of it than that.
No question. And I don't want to say I'm old, Jonathan, but I am old school, and I just love the face-to-face interactions. I love being on the show floor and talking to people. I love educating, and the one thing that my business has in common with everybody who's a business owner is, again, every business owner at some point in time will exit their business. It's an inevitable fact of business ownership. It's a finite life cycle. They're all going to exit. Some are a year away from exiting, some are 40 years away from exiting. But I love just having those initial conversations with people, trying to open their eyes to remind them that this is a process, that you have to prepare for it if you want to maximize the value of your business at the end of your business life cycle, and just start getting those wheels turning and making those face-to-face interactions. I just think face to face builds trust. I think face to face builds confidence, and it's the best part of my job is getting out there and working with people directly at shows like these.
Yes, certainly, we've all gotten used to having our Zoom, our Teams calls, but yeah, you're right. Nothing really replaces that face-to-face interaction, that chance to really get to talk to people and network in person. We've talked a little bit here, Terry, with your topic that it really is applicable to anybody in there, wherever they are, as you said, if they're retiring in 25 years, they're retire in 5 years. So why is it important for companies, even if somebody says, I'm not retiring forever, I've got 3 decades, 2 decades, whatever. Why is it important for those companies to be thinking about that exit strategy even now?
Well, I'll answer that question with a quote from one of the most famous businessmen in the USA, and that's Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett's quote was, "Mistakes made in the once in a lifetime sale of a business are irreversible." So again, for most business owners, they're only going to sell their business one time. And if you make a mistake, it could cost you tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so our goal with our involvement at Expo and with our presentation is just to help, again, the owners to understand what that preparation looks like and why it's important to take those steps and to get your business ready to sell. If you called me today and said, "Hey, I want to sell my business tomorrow," we could probably sell it, but I guarantee we will not maximize value. And I guarantee that process will be a little bit more difficult than had you called me 2 years prior to say, "I'm thinking about selling in 2 years. And what do we need to do to get my business ready to be shown to buyers, and to maximize value. So got a long track record. Sunbelt's been in business for over 50 years, and we've been down this road thousands and thousands of times a year. We sell over 2,000 businesses a year. So, we know what needs to happen in order for a business owner to have a smooth transition, and while having a smooth transition, also put themselves in the best position to maximize value. And so those are some of the things we're going to talk about with that preparation and at the Expo seminar.
Great, thank you. Pivoting back over to the PFAS with you, Liz, you made the comment in talking about why you come to Expo that you see it as being very important for the textile industry. And why do you think this issue is so important? And why do people working in the industry really need to pay attention to what's going on?
The textile industry is, especially targeted for PFAS because they've used water, grease, stain-resistant chemicals like PFAS on some of their finished textiles. So it's important that this industry starts, doing their strategic planning, really starts understanding their liability around PFAS and understanding how to manage those liability issues, because there are regulations out there, federally, state regulations, international regulations around PFAS. There's consumer product bans that are impacting the textile industry. So, some of the things that, we're going to touch on will include, how to know if you need to be concerned with PFAS, and is there a way to determine that without actually doing any kind of sampling or anything? If your business is determined to have a higher PFAS risk, how can you mitigate and manage that risk? We're going to also get into some of the PFAS regulatory changes we've seen with the new administration that could impact the textile industry. And that will likely include this TSCA 10-year look-back reporting requirement. We're just hearing just last week that changes to this reporting rule are currently in with the Office of Management and Budget, but the public, we haven't really been notified of the changes yet, and that's likely going to affect the textile industry. We're going to look at the toxics release inventory, TRI. They have new supplier notification requirements for PFAS. And so this textile industry is going to be getting new safety data sheets, new information on materials they're getting that's going to be more straightforward and more transparent about PFAS content. And we're going to look at the status of PFAS in wastewater permits, because some states are starting to add PFAS to these permits. Some publicly owned treatment works or POTWs are going upstream to the different facilities, including textile facilities, to determine where the PFAS is coming. And we'll look at, what state laws, regulations are really driving some of the bigger challenges, especially in regard to the PFAS product bans in textiles. The last thing, any of these businesses want is any harm to their reputation because of PFAS. So again, being prepared for all of this is super important.
Thank you. Obviously, you're going to go more in depth when we're in Indianapolis, but what are some of the things that you're watching now that you think are maybe some of the most important updates that textile companies should be aware of?
So I guess I would start with the TSCA PFAS reporting rule. So it was recently updated to extend the reporting deadline to October 2026. And as I mentioned, it just did go to the Office of Management and Budget with some potential revisions to the rule, which we're not really sure what they are yet, but we're pretty sure that they're going to eliminate overburdening some of the small businesses and also article importers. So although not definite, this could mean removing article reporting in its entirety and possibly removing the reporting of fluoropolymers in imported articles. And that kind of accounted for about 80% of reportable articles. So, that's going to make it a little bit easier for the textile industry to comply with the TSCA PFAS reporting rule. Hopefully we'll know by November as well. Another regulation, as I mentioned, to keep aware of is the toxics release inventory, or TRI. So as of March of this year, there's now 205 TRI reportable PFAS. And as I mentioned, suppliers are now required to issue revised safety data sheets or some communication that discloses PFAS identity and concentration in chemical purchases for the PFAS chemicals that are on that TRI list. And that's regardless of the concentration. So there's no longer a de minimis amount for these 205 PFAS on safety data sheets. So that disclosure would be with at least the first shipment of the mixture that these industries or these businesses are receiving. And they're going to have a clearer understanding now of which of their purchases contain PFAS. Of course, we're tracking the maximum contaminant levels or MCLs for drinking water under the Safe Drinking Water Act. Those were finalized in April 2024 for 6 PFAS compounds, but I just heard that by February of 2026, those are going to be rescinded for 4 of the 6 PFAS. They're going to retain MCLs for 2 of them. It's all currently in litigation as well. And so it could be a bit before we have any final rulings, but right now they're saying February 2026. And we're also tracking product bans, which are occurring at the state level, also within the European Union, specifically through the REACH program. And those product bans, have the potential to significantly impact the textile industry. They affect many different types of textile products. So fabrics or garments that are manufactured here in the United States may have been treated with PFAS materials. There's reporting requirements. Some states or even some certifications have requirements to measure total organic fluorine to demonstrate that there's no intentionally added PFAS. So really staying abreast of these regulations and requirements will be important to the business. And also, just as I mentioned, businesses really need to be evaluating their facilities' discharge, their wastewater discharge. It's really important to be prepared for that because, again, the POTWs may be coming upstream to ask them to do it as well and to see what's there. So be prepared, know what's in your wastewater discharge. And there'll be
Certainly,
more. Yeah.
certainly a complex
Yeah.
issue. And
Yeah.
like I said, certainly a complex issue, but we appreciate you coming to Expo and giving us a little sample today of what people can try to learn and try to understand about this topic. Terry, I did want to ask you some more about your session and your topic, and what are some common mistakes that you see companies make when they're sort of planning their exit strategy, working on selling their textile business, planning for selling their textile business? What do you see when they come to you and you've said, well, okay, here's what we need to address?
Yeah, great question, Jonathan. And I'll start by just saying, the process to sell a business is long and it's complex. I mean, our average time to sell a business right now is just under 8 months from data list to data close. And in that period of time, even, if you talk about before in the planning stages and then during the time of the listing, there's just so many steps and so many things that you have to deal with. So when you ask, what's some of the common mistakes, there's just so many things that could trip up a seller in selling their business. But I'll give you just a few. One is what we've already kind of talked about, and that is that sellers just fail to plan, right? And I think sometimes in people's minds, business owners' minds, they just feel that succession planning, exit strategies, it's for someone down the road when I get 20 years down the road and I'm going to be closer to doing it. Or, they don't even think about it all because, look, I own 2 businesses myself. I understand this. A lot of times you wake up every morning and all you're just focused, tunnel vision on getting those doors open and serving the customers that you have and dealing with your employees and your vendors. So it's just kind of superfluous to think about the end when you're not ready to go to the end. But proper failing to plan, can have devastating effects, as Warren Buffett said in my quote earlier. So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes is just not taking those steps and putting stuff down. The second thing I'll say is, most business owners have a value in mind that is much higher than what the market will bear. And I understand where that comes from. I mean, for a business owner, it's your blood, your sweat, your tears, your investment capital, your 70-hour weeks, right? I mean, the business is always going to mean more to you than it is to somebody coming in from the outside. But unfortunately, buyers don't care about how many hours you worked last week or that you had to you had to put an order on a credit card because you were running low on cash one day and that your employees called in sick and so you worked, 2 shifts. What they care about is financial performance, and they're going to value your business based on financial performance. So all that other things about your business that you really like or that you put into your business, it's not going to help build the value. So I tell every owner, you got to be realistic. We want to be at the top end of the value chain, but we've got to be realistic on the value side. And I think the third thing I'll just mention is I think I've had a lot of people come to my booths at these shows or call me and go, "Hey, I found a buyer. I just need help getting them to the finish line." To me, finding a buyer is not the hard part of selling your business. There's a million people who call themselves buyers out there every single day. To me, getting them to the finish line is the magic. That's the secret sauce. And there's a lot of steps, there's a lot of complexity, And having somebody like a professional business broker help you, hold your hand, help them navigate the waters of that long, complex transaction, I think it's gonna pay off in spades. But those are just a few things that come top of mind, Jonathan. Price it right, plan, and consider using a third party to help you get that deal done, because it's a tough deal selling a business. It's not an easy thing.
Certainly something I've seen many business owners struggle with, and it's certainly not an easy process.
Yeah.
You talked about the importance of planning ahead. What is, and I realize every business is going to be a little different, but what kind of time frame do you try to tell people to be thinking about? How far ahead of time should they be laying the groundwork for this?
I think from a pure succession planning or exit strategy standpoint, I think you should be thinking about the end in mind the day you open your doors for your business. What is the goal, right? Put it on paper. I want to keep my business for 25 years, and in 2049 I want to sell for $2 million, right? I think you have to have that beacon out there that you're shooting for to help run the business on a day-to-day basis in between now and whenever you want to actually sell the business. Now, for those who are already in business and haven't done that, I'd say do it right away. But for people who are contemplating selling, I would like to talk to them at least 1 and potentially 2 years before they're actually ready to go to market. Because I think there's some things we can do in the business over that 1 to 2 year period of time that's going to put their business in a much better light, and going to make their lives a lot easier when they start getting introduced to buyers, and more importantly, the buyers start taking their financials to the bank and looking to get a loan and all that stuff. So at least 1 year to 2 years, talk to us. But again, I will say that I think it's important to have that succession plan in place on day one, to understand, to at least have an understanding. And look, write that succession plan in pencil, right? Because life happens, things will change. My favorite story is, when the United States landed that rocket on the moon in 1969, they put that rocket within 5 feet of their intended target. But along the way in flight, they made over 10,000 adjustments to the flight plan. You put down on a piece of paper, this is my succession plan, this is my goals. And then, like I said, as life goes on, and we get hit with COVID, and we get hit with partnership dissolutions or sicknesses or employee problems, we have to adjust those plans, right? And that's why you put it in pencil. But I always think you need that beacon out there that you're shooting for. Where are we going with this thing? Where do we want to end up? I think that's important on day one to have that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I'm going to have a few more questions for Terry, but I do want to go back over to Liz, talk some more about PFAS. I don't want to say the fun subject of PFAS, but anyways, as you've alluded to, it is very complicated. A lot of different rules, state level, federal level. Do you have any advice for companies that are worried about this issue, about how they can just try to keep up on what's going on?
Yes. First and foremost, I think, there has to be a team developed, a stakeholder team developed that would include regulatory compliance experts. I could include a company like TRC. It would include, the business's EHS leaders, internal, external legal representation, customs, purchasing, product stewardship, operational leaders. It's really important, like as a first step, to have all stakeholders kind of engaged in the process. Really important to have sponsorship by corporate. And it's really important that the business just has like an overarching strategy in place to proactively assess and kind of govern their PFAS footprint or liability. And then that, if they have this strategy, that would just ensure consistency in how they respond to different PFAS state, federal, international regulations. It would allow proper planning for expenditures and risk, and really identifying, involving all those appropriate stakeholders in the process. And then having the strategy will also inform their decision making. It will allow them to prioritize expenditures, stay on top of those evolving regulations, make sure all the different programs within the business are interacting and we're kind of responding to the regulatory drivers in the same manner. And just as I kind of mentioned before, being prepared. So staying on top of the regulations is not easy. There are ways to do it. There are organizations that kind of track this stuff for us, and I'll probably be going over and providing those tools during my session as well.
Thank you. I'd like to follow up with that there, as we kind of wrap up today, what do you hope attendees will learn by attending your session at Expo? What would be some of the key takeaways that you hope they would learn?
They're going to learn some tools to assessing PFAS liability in their business. They're going to learn, we'll kind of go through I call it like a 6-step procedure on how to really determine that if they have PFAS risks and liability and whether they're low, medium, kind of high risks. It will involve kind of going over how to stay on top of the regulatory arena, federal, state, international regulations. We'll go over how to do the assessment of risk, how to determine if it's a low, medium, or high risk after we gather all the data, and then kind of looking at it as how we're going to manage the risks. My partner in this session, Amy, will be talking a lot about the legal implications of these PFAS regulations and how that can also affect the business as well.
Okay, sounds interesting. I certainly will be trying to attend myself, and I hope others will as well. Terry, same question for you. What are some of the key takeaways you hope people learn at your session?
You know, the session is geared around specifically selling a business that is in the textile industries because, as I mentioned early on, any sale of a business is complex, but textiles can be, can add some complexity levels to transitioning a business. So we're going to talk about some of those things. We're also going to talk about price, how to value your business right and what you can expect and what that looks like as far as, how buyers and banks will value your specific business. And I think that, again, is just another thing that whether you're a year from selling or 25 years from now, and I think everybody should know, hey, what's my business worth today in today's market, at least, right? I mean, obviously markets change, things are going to change with your business, but I think you should always know where you stand. And we're going to talk about how to value businesses that way. We're also going to talk about, just some of the do's and don'ts and some of the things that we've learned in our 50 years of selling businesses. And the information is presented. It doesn't matter whether you're selling today or 20 years from now. It doesn't matter whether you're going to use a business broker or not. We're just going to give you those strategies and tips on how to best maximize the value of your business when you're ready to exit. So, it's a jam-packed 45 minutes. I'll say that. We've got probably 2.5 hours worth of information that we cram into a 45-minute session. So we move a little bit fast, but I just think it's valuable information that every business owner, regardless of where they're at in their business life cycle, will appreciate and can benefit from.
Wonderful. Does either one of you have anything else you'd like to share about your presentation at Expo, about your topic today? Anything else you'd like our listeners to know before they come to Indianapolis?
I'm looking forward to meeting new people, talking about PFAS, seeing where we are since last year, seeing if companies are still concerned, seeing if companies are doing anything, evaluating their PFAS risks already.
I'll just add, I'm hoping that everybody can come to the session, but if not, we do have the table on the show floor. Stop by if you want to have a one-on-one conversation and pick my brain a little bit or just get some additional information, especially if you couldn't make the session. Like I said, I relish the opportunity to meet new people. As Liz said, I like to have conversations. I like to share my knowledge, and I'd be happy to answer any and all questions, whether you come to the session or you just stop by the booth. So I'm looking forward to being in Indianapolis with ATA again, and I'm looking forward to meeting new people as well. So thanks for the opportunity.
Well, great. We're looking forward to seeing you there and hopefully our listeners as well. So I want to thank the two of you for joining me today and all our listeners for joining us. And I hope that you have enjoyed this small sample of Expo education. If you'd like to learn more from today's guests or learn more about all the education offerings coming up at Advanced Textiles Expo, visit advancedtextilesexpo.com. And we hope to see you in Indianapolis. So thank you for joining us for this episode of ATA Talking Textiles. ATA is a not-for-profit association representing the international specialty fabrics marketplace. Learn more about the events, workshops, and webinars ATA hosts throughout the year at textiles.org/events.